Let's start then. Okay, welcome to the meeting of the Swansea Bay City Region Joint Scrutiny Committee held on Tuesday, the 24th of October at 2 p.m. This is a virtual meeting. Could those officers in attendance please introduce yourself?
I'm Tom Rees. I am the Democratic Services Officer for Neath Talbot Council.
Thank you, Tom. Steve?
Hi, I'm Stephen Aldridge-Jones. I'm the new Regional Finance Manager from Carmarthenshire County Council.
Thank you, Steve. Samantha? No. Jonathan? Yeah, I'm Agent.
Jonathan Burns, Portfolio Director of the Swansea Bay City deal.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Samantha? Samantha Cullen? No, I don't think she could hear us. Miss Oliver?
Hi, I'm Deisha Oliver, Digital Project Manager with the Swansea Bay City Deals Digital Infrastructure Programme.
Okay, that's great. And those members in attendance include myself, Councillor Holly, Councillor Dacey, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Bowen, Councillor Yelland, Councillor Morgan, and Councillor Holland. I don't think I've missed anyone out. Jonathan, do you want to come in?
Yeah, Chair. Sam can't hear. I don't think anybody talking, so I don't know if there's a technical issue on Sam's side. She just confirmed she can't hear.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
Well,
I think you got thumbs up, Chair.
Apologies, I'm back in. There was
Okay.
absolutely no sound at all. I was completely oblivious to everything that was going on. Hi all, I'm Sam Cutlan and I'm Skills and Talent Programme Manager. I work under the Regional Learning and Skills Partnership.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay. So item 1, Chair's announcements. I don't have any. Item number 2, apologies for absence. Tom, anyone?
Yes, so we've received apologies today from Councillor Sparks, Councillor Curtis and Councillor Bynan, but we are core item. We should be fine for the rest of the meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Item number 3, declarations of personal interest. We all have a duty under the Code of Conduct to declare any personal interest we may have on any agenda item. Does anyone wish to raise any at this moment? And no? Okay. Item number 4, the internal audit recommendations report. In the pre-briefing meeting, we have decided that we're going to take this document as read and we'll move on to the next agenda item. So agenda item 5, skills and talent programme update. And I believe this is Samantha. Samantha.
Hello, me again. I'll just get my presentation up. If you can let me know when you can see it.
Yeah.
I've had a Teams update, so I honestly haven't got a clue what's going on with it. It is telling me that it's loading.
Okay. Yep, we can see it now.
Yay, I can't. Yay, now I can. Thanks all. So Skills and Talent Programme, I've just pulled together a really quick overview, but happy to answer any questions or follow up with further information if needed. So just as an overview, the Skills and Talent Programme is one of the 9 Swansea Bay City Deal projects, and it is predominantly there to support the other 8 to ensure all these lovely job creation, these exciting new jobs that are going to be brought to the region are filled by people within the region, so that they can fully benefit from everything that's going on. It's really quite an exciting programme. It's quite forward thinking. Its key priority is to bring industry into our training, our upskilling, and bridging that gap really between education, vocational training, work-based learning, and industry and sector. So really hoping to put sector front and centre of any training solutions. The primary aim, so this is to deliver at least another 2,200 additional skills within the region to support the development of around 14,000 individuals with higher levels. That's over 10 years, not the 5-year spend period, to create at least 3,000 new apprenticeship opportunities from level 3 up to degree level, 20 new course frameworks to meet the needs and future needs. That's the key element, is that horizon scanning and getting ourselves ready for these new skills demands rather than being on the back foot as we previously have been and sort of reacting. And is to help create a clear career pathway for our young people as well, so that new workforce coming through, making it very easy for them to see, well, here I am, here's where I want to be in the future, how do I get there? And create 2 centres of excellence within the region. So we've made loads of progress and we're really coming into the meat of it now. We're really in the exciting bit. So we've made, in the first instance, when I was first in post, we created a skills barometer for the region, which looked at these exciting new roles that are going to be coming into the region through the City Deal and other inward investment opportunities, and mapped that across to the training provision and vocational offer within the region, hence giving us the specific provision gap that we would that are currently in existence within the region, and giving us a bit of a roadmap of where we need to go and what activity needs to take place around the creation of new qualifications and training pathways. So that's been completed and revisited and broken down by sectors. They have just been delivered to the sector cluster groups and other stakeholders so that we can draw out of them their key priorities from these provision gaps and other skills and recruitment gaps that they're currently experiencing. It says there 9 pilot projects have now been approved. That's actually 14. And we've got another 6 going for potential approval, or at least scrutiny, in 2 weeks or 3 weeks' time. This is quite exciting. We've got 2 new apprenticeship routes were created. This met specific demand that was identified through the Regional Learning and Skills Partnership, but really brought forward through cluster groups around the need for user-centred design apprenticeships. There was no training provision route within not just the region, it's Wales, it's the UK, and indeed it's been the #1 global in-demand skill for the last 2 years consecutively. We have now completed that body of work, the apprenticeship. So the qualifications have gone through the writing, and it really had a Southwest flavour. Our employers that were asking for this qualification to be developed, they fed into everything, and they were so engaged. It was just phenomenal to see, down to unit, what was to be included in each unit, how that was going to be assessed, etc. That's gone through all the approvals process, including final sign-off with Welsh Government. So they will now fully fund that moving forward, Pan Wales. And it's in delivery in Gower College, with the degree level due to go into delivery next year, ready for progression. And we've managed to turn that around in 7 or 8 months, whereas previously apprenticeship development, you were looking at a couple of years plus, really. So that's such a really fabulous good news story, and an example of industry and training coming together to meet that need. There's loads of discussions ongoing for future pilot projects to meet those skills needs as well. And as I said, there's another 6 applications going through our governance structure in the next couple of weeks. So approved pilot projects. Before I move on to those, just an idea of some of the key guidance that we work under, the arena that we've allowed ourselves to work in. Basically, it needs to show absolutely no duplication of what's already out there. We're not looking at duplicating anything that's already there. We can add value to something that's already there, but no duplication. It needs to support a City Deal project or a key economic priority. It needs to work with industry, and I think that's really key for us to be successful, really, and to shake the tree a little bit and bring a new way of working in where industry really do help to support the creation of these qualifications and make sure they're fit for purpose. So as our young people are coming out the other end of their educational and training journey, they're ready, they're work ready, and they've got the skills they need to perform. It needs to show sustainability, post-skills funding as well. No flash in the pan, 2 years and then gone, which I know we've seen in the past with some things. It needs to leave a legacy and to keep moving forward and evolving. So these are, that looks tiny to me even with my glasses on, but these are the currently approved pilot projects. As you can see, we've got activity in the 5 key areas. digital, energy, green construction, health and wellbeing, and smart manufacture. There's been a lot of activity around the green construction, purely for needs, as I said, is sector driven as to key priorities, but there's going to be more activity across all of those in the coming weeks and months. Some of those are in delivery, some not quite yet, they're just in the preparatory stage, but we are seeing some actual outputs now being fed back as the claims are coming through. And just for an overview, purely because it's been asked previously, so I thought it was handy to put in, these are the figures around our secured investment so far. So we've got public sector match funding, private sector match funding, and private apprenticeship investment. This has increased, but not formally yet. October is our end of our claims process, so we're just processing the next round of claims now. So I know the figures are higher than that, but it's not formally completed yet. So the private apprenticeship investment is what's cited in our business case as where our private investment is going to be coming from, but where we only pay 50% of total project costs for our pilot projects. You can see there's other private sector match funding rolling in as well, but that's added value. So we're well on target with those. And these are some of the private investment sources. I don't think any of them will be a huge surprise to you. They all have a footprint within the region, and they have been particularly around Pembrokeshire and the energy pilot projects. They really have been so engaged, and they're not just providing funding, they're providing their time and their expertise to help to develop schemes of work and awareness raising as well. It really is a collaborative project, all of them. Done.
Thank you very much, Samantha. Okay.
You're welcome.
Does any members have any questions in regards to the presentation? Okay.
Kind.
Councillor Morgan to start, please.
Hi, Samantha. Thanks for that presentation. That's just a quick one for me. There's no surprise to anybody who comes in. I always challenge people on the headline figures. So we've got an aim, and I understand it's an aim of creating pathways to 3,000 apprenticeships. So have we got any figures on where we are with that?
That one is proven to be a challenge. I am honest, which is normally why they don't send me out to do these things. It is proven to be a challenge, and the reason it is a challenge is because we haven't got ownership of it really. We don't create jobs. That's not the skills and talent aim. The other 8 city deal projects are the ones that will be creating the jobs, and amongst those, there needs to be 3,000 apprentices. At the moment, we're looking at just over 100 have been recruited through construction phase of a couple of the projects. There will also be, as I said, our new apprenticeships that we will be creating and rolling out. That will also be included in that figure. So that figure is lower than the actual at the moment, just because we're waiting for all the details to go through SLUR, RE, the UX apprenticeship sign-ups for this academic calendar. We have got a plan of action around how to engage with the other city deal projects, contractors, future tenants, etc., to raise the awareness of apprenticeships and the benefits of them to help to drive those figures up. It is over 2 years. I'm confident that we will get there, but it has been a slower start than what I anticipated in truth.
So in terms of gathering the information, and that's what's proven difficult. So
initially,
if we were looking at it positively, you might say there's more than 100 being created, but it's the figures coming back to you that
it is, and it's getting a formal way of tracking them, make sure there's not duplication, so we are not claiming something and one of the other city deal projects are claiming it as well. That's quite important. So it's getting the formality of the reporting process and definition. Sometimes what is an apprentice? Is that somebody that comes and just does 1 week's work within that build or city deal project, or is it an entire new job creation apprenticeship? So it's looking at those figures. I'm lowball every figure I have given you. I have lowballed with intent that I won't sit up here and say something that I'm not 100% certain about and won't stand up under scrutiny. The fact of the matter is that numbers probably are higher. and that will obviously positively impact our private investment apprenticeship figures as well. But until I am confident that we have got a robust reporting mechanism where there is 100% accuracy, I'm reluctant to cite higher figures at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. I was just going back to, I know I missed the pre-meeting, but I do agree with everything in the audit. And really, this is part of it, it's getting actual figures to us. But yeah, thank you, Samantha.
Welcome.
Thank you, Giles. Councillor Dacey.
Thank you. Samantha, I was on an extensive list of the companies that supply or helping you or trying to get some funding, because I know there's a local company in Talbot, JES, who are trying to do an exciting project regarding welding and pipe fitting and bringing a centre of excellence into South Wales.
And it looks exciting. Oh, I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say. What I will say is there are 6 further applications. I'm aware of the project you've just mentioned, and there are 6 applications going through our approvals process in the next couple of weeks.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Welcome. If you want to pop me an email, we can have a chat.
Lovely. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions on this? I can see that a lot of the apprenticeships are based around kind of private investment, and obviously that's something that the city deal is based upon. I know some of the members here are also interested in apprenticeships within local authorities, and is there a place for that to be part of this city deal as well? Because obviously
there can be, if there is a link to a city deal project. I wouldn't record any apprentices outside of that. It would need to be linked to a city deal project, which is where I think, again, speaking openly, I didn't write this business case. 3,000 really is a very ambitious figure. It's achievable because I'm dogged and we will get there, but I think a lot of it will be via new apprenticeship pathways and the individuals that take part and benefit from these new pathways that we create and fund. The construction phases of the city deal projects, I would expect to see activity and recruitment of apprentices on there, with some of the local authorities within their contracting for construction contractors. It is stated in their community benefits that they need to recruit apprentices, which makes my life a little bit easier because you're pushing against an open door. There also needs to be further support. I think it can be a complicated process to recruit the right apprentice within the right role, which is what we're looking at, a support we're looking to offer to all contractors, tenants, etc. We're hoping to have some activity in the new year around that. But yes, if they're linked to the city deal project, whether they're local authority employed or any business, we would support them and claim them as an apprenticeship recruitment.
And then 2 final questions before I bring Jonathan in. We're 7.5 years past now the signing of the city deal, so we're about the halfway stage in terms of the city deal. What is the timescales you are working towards in terms of trying to gain these extra 2,900 apprenticeships? So
the output of the Skills and Talent programme is until 2030, is that right? So it's 5 years after our spend is done, basically. We've got another 18 months, 2 years of spend, but the outputs are claimed for 5 years subsequent to that. So I want to see those figures. I want to see us far closer in our apprenticeship figures. Our other outputs, we are well on target and we will exceed quite comfortably by the time I'm gone. I would like to see us considerably closer to that apprenticeship target, and I'm, if not there, by the time I leave, which will be 2025.
Yeah, and the last question from me before Jonathan comes in is on that 2-year spend. As you say, you've got about 18 months, 2 years to kind of spend money to kind of facilitate this kind of investment into our young people normally, but also could be of varied ages. How do you see kind of an ability to gain that 3,000 after the 2 years spent, because obviously you're hoping that momentum will just carry it through. But if you're not hitting some big numbers soon, then it's going to be difficult.
Yes, we need to be soon, which is why we're looking at this activity, working with our contractors, which is due to start after Christmas, to really handhold them. I worked in apprenticeships and work-based learning before coming here, and I know unless you're well versed in the systems and that kind of thing, employers are put off, and that's the truth of it. It's too much of their time they have to invest even to find the information they need. So I'm hoping that will help around, well, not hoping, that is the purpose of the activity, is to increase those numbers in the short term. In terms of longer term, with the apprenticeship creation that is happening and is ongoing and will be rolled out, those figures will increase on account of that as well. So the next 12 months of the skills and talent will be quite telling in terms of apprenticeship figures, I think, and I'll feel far more comfortable once that robust reporting mechanism is in, to know that I'm reporting accurate figures, which are going to be higher than what I've cited. So that needs to be ironed out, and then this activity to support tenants, contractors, construction, etc., to increase those figures as well. We'll get there.
Okay. Jonathan.
Just to kind of back up some of the bits that Sam said, but yeah, and again, it's similar for the infrastructure, but let's stick with the skills. The pilots, Sam, you're up to 14, potentially up to in the region of 20 within a couple of weeks or a few months or whatever it will end up being. That will create a pipeline of apprenticeships as well, because lots of the colleges, schools, universities are gaining the kind of knowledge, insight, if you like, engaging with industry through that process. We know that there's demand there for upskilling young people or existing workforce. So we know the pipeline is there. It's just got to go through that process of the pilots and various other frameworks to develop, which apprenticeships will be part of that process. So what Sam can report on, the known knowns, if you like, are the 100 that Sam said earlier on, but largely around the construction, because that's where most of the infrastructure projects are based. But as soon as that infrastructure is in operation, then we should hopefully see those ramp up. And in parallel with that, all of the other things, like the pilots, for example, are starting to gear up as well. So, again, it's the numbers are yet to come through, but I agree with Sam. I think we will get there, and it will be hard work. The money that is spent in the first 5 years of skills and talent, because, Chair, as you know, even though it might be in year 7, really speaking for skills and talent, it's only in year, I would say 3, we'll going towards year 3. Yeah, so year 3 will start in April next year.
Yeah.
So in fairness, they're not even halfway through their program. And the other important point I think to note is the Regional Learning Skills Partnership was the vehicle of choice to implement the skills and talent program. So that vehicle will still exist after the program is finished. So they will continue to engage and monitor and various other things. So it's designed with purpose for that in mind.
Okay. Does any other members have any questions or comments? I can't see any indication. Okay, thank you very much, Samantha, for that report. Much appreciated. Welcome. If we move on to agenda item 6, this is the digital infrastructure update. I understand that.
Are you okay if I share my screen?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, DJ Oliver will be taking us through this.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the digital infrastructure programme, we're responsible for improving connectivity across the region. That's both fixed fibre, broadband and mobile connectivity as well. It's an ambitious programme of work, and I'm just going to take you through these headline details about the programme. Have we got time for me to share a short video? If we don't, I can circulate the link afterwards.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
2 seconds. Okay, so this will set the scene, hopefully, of what we're trying to achieve as a programme. Can everyone hear that? Okay, so hopefully that's given everyone a flavour of what the programme's actually looking to achieve. It's about much more than just connectivity itself. It's very much about making sure that this is an enabling technology that's going to support people on their journey to adopting new technology, making sure that everybody has access to good connectivity at home and in their businesses. I'm just going to shut this one down. Sorry. Technology works against you. 2 moments. Can you all see my slides again?
No.
No, sorry.
Yes.
Now, great. Sorry, apologies about that. So the programme itself, we've just gone through a gateway review that was literally finished a couple of weeks ago. We were assessed as a programme as being in amber green. There are a few recommendations around delivering a forward looking delivery plan for the programme so that we could keep our key stakeholders involved in the different procurements that we're running. Also baselining our benefits. I'll come on to benefits a little bit later on, but understanding what success looks like for the programme. And also looking at maybe moving funding between the different work streams that we're delivering against. But overall, the review team were actually really impressed with the collaborative approach to the programme and the relationships that were in place. The strapline of our programme is connectivity through collaboration, and it underpins everything that we do as a programme. We work really closely with both UK and Welsh Government across all of our partners and also with suppliers. A lot of this is actually down to commercial delivery and commercial rollout, and we're here to facilitate and support that as much as possible. In terms of governance of the programme, we've got our programme board is in place with our SRO, and the programme itself is delivering against 3 project work streams, and I'll give you an update of each of those and the planned work we've got within each of them. We're quite fortunate. So as a programme, in addition to capital funding, we've also got revenue funding. So we've been able to allocate resources into each of the local authority teams, and where that's absolutely critical is we've got support and engagement officers in each of the local authorities, and they're working with our communities and our businesses to make sure they understand what's available to them in terms of better broadband, but also to keep them informed of what's happening. Often it's quite a difficult message to convey delivering a huge project, rolling out fibre across the entire region is a massive civil engineering project. And although people need better connectivity, it can often take between 18 to 24 months for these projects to come to fruition. So these teams are there to support them and give them advice on alternative technology that may help them to get better broadband quicker. Our next generation infrastructure managers are in post to support suppliers and UK government in the interventions and their own commercial rollout to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. Often, unfortunately, local authorities can be seen as a bit of a closed door, which isn't strictly true. But if you're trying to work with both highways, planning and all sorts of departments, having a single point of contact actually makes it so much easier. And in the assessment we've done around the benefits, the teams, the local authorities that had these teams in place early on have seen a significant investment both from the private sector and the public sector. And then as a regional team, you may notice at the top, probably Gareth Jones, who you're used to seeing attend these meetings. He's currently interim CDO at Carmarthenshire County Council. So during the interim period, which will be up until January, both myself and Bex are taking accountability for certain elements of each of the work streams. We've also recently appointed Amy as our Engagement and Communications Officer. One of the really important things we recognise is to attract additional inward investment, we need to start sharing a lot of the good news and a lot of the things that are happening within the region, and also to amplify the messaging around the work that the support and engagement officers are doing. They can only reach so many people by working with them one-to-one, and hopefully through the work that Amy does, we'll be able to let a lot more people know what they can actually use to help them get better broadband. So in terms of spend, like I say, we're quite fortunate that we have got that revenue and we've been able to get those resources into each of our local authorities. But with our capital spend, we've got Connected Places has got the highest allocation at the moment. That was one of the Gateway Review recommendations, is that potentially we may need to move funding across to rural to address issues with poor connectivity in our more rural areas. But equally potentially across into the next gen wireless work stream, which is looking around emerging technology and how people can actually take advantage of this connectivity. So that's something we'll be looking at over the next few months. The assessment that we did for 21-22, I'll just talk you through the high level figures for that. We're actually in the process now of contracting an organisation to do an annual impact assessment for us for the remainder of the programme, and then that will tie into the final economic evaluation. For 21-22, we appointed Farpoint, who are recognised within the telecoms industry, so the data stands up to scrutiny from both governments and also from suppliers themselves, to look at the public and private sector investment in the region for that year. The Virgin Media figure we've separated out, and the reason for that is it was predominantly a software upgrade, so no true infrastructure was actually built. So the other figures there, the 14.5 million was broken down. You can say a significant amount of build within the rural areas, which is quite unexpected when this is actual commercial delivery. The urban areas you'd think would be easier for them to deploy to. But I think that is an awful lot to do with the work that's happening within those teams in the local authorities. Public sector investment. So for every £3 of private sector investment in infrastructure, there's about £1 of public sector investment. That's across a variety of different schemes. I'm more than happy to talk anybody who is interested through that afterwards, but there's a lot being pulled down again to support with that connectivity issues in our poorly served communities. So for 21-22, this is the final figures. As a programme, like I said, we've excluded the Virgin Media because it didn't involve any of our local authority teams, but the remaining deployment from both public and private sector would have been done via those teams, including planning, highways, even comms. So there's a lot of touch points across the local authority that contribute to this investment into the region. So the actual work streams themselves, so Connected Places is very much about improving connectivity in our economic growth zones, and we're doing that through a number of ways. One of the primary ways across all of our work streams is working with suppliers. We want to help them to spend their money in our region. There's a race to build fibre across the UK, and we very much want to be part of that. There's a finite amount of people who can build this infrastructure, so keeping them within region is really important, and those ongoing relationships and conversations, understanding what they're doing is really critical. From our own spend, we're upgrading 69 public sector sites from copper to full fibre. What that will also bring in terms of benefits is additional fibre connectivity to 401 premises within the region. So other residential and business premises will benefit from this particular procurement. Dark fibre network, we're building dedicated fibre to 33 strategic sites across the region. That's predominantly connecting our universities and our hospitals, but some data centres within the local authorities as well. And that will enable them to really take forwards their own digital transformational agendas, future-proofing it and allowing collaboration between those organisations. But very similar to the public sector procurement, it also will bring additional business grade fibre across that entire urban area. So it's from the outskirts of Llanelli, so Pentrowel and Prince Philip Hospital, through Swansea and then out to Neath. It will drive, like I say, that high quality business grade fibre throughout the region. The rural journey is very much driven by data. So we're quite fortunate. We get data sets from UK government that let us know what both their plans are and also what commercial rollout plans are. So what suppliers are doing within our area. So like I said, our primary focus is helping the industry to roll out and to deliver their own commercial plans. We're also working really closely with UK government's Project Gigabit and also with Welsh Government with their very hard to reach project. And then we've got 6 million of our own funding where we can do an infill procurement to try and then plug the gaps, really. £6 million isn't a huge amount of money to achieve this. It's unlikely that we'll be building fibre. We'll be looking at technology agnostic solutions like fixed wireless access and alternatives such as 4G or Starlink. But we're in the process of scoping that out at the moment. We've just received the data sets from UK government. And this is what it looks like at the moment. So this is the picture. Just to be clear, with both Swansea and Neath, you can see the fibre footprint is considerably less than Carmarthenshire. And the reason for that, Neath particularly, is part of the Virgin upgrade has actually meant there is a higher gigabit capable broadband within that area, but it's not true fibre. Fibre is really critical in terms of future-proofing the network, so we don't want to have to come back and do this in 10 years' time. So at the moment, the fibre footprint is low, but actually from the consumer perspective, they can get higher speeds. So I probably haven't made that clear. I can go through that afterwards if anybody would like more details. The problem we've got today is this next slide. So at the moment, these are the homes and businesses that have got really poor broadband. That's where our rural work stream will be focusing. How can we make sure that these homes and businesses get better broadband as soon as possible? And then the final work stream is Next Gen Wireless. That's everything to do with mobile coverage, mobile capacity, and then making use of that infrastructure to take forwards adoption of emerging technology within businesses. So the Shared Rural Network is a UK government programme which is providing 4G coverage in our worst served areas. So anywhere where there are total not spots, and they've partnered with the industry there to deliver against partial not spots. In the region, that's potentially £18.5 million investment into improving mobile coverage. Improving the mobile user experience, we've got interest from a few private sector partners partnered up with VMO2 and Vodafone, which is looking at congested areas within our city centres, and interestingly also in Tenby, where we recognise as an issue once the tourism season starts. So once there's an awful lot of people visiting Tenby, whilst your phone might tell you you can get signal, because of the amount of people in the area, you probably can't do very much at all. So again, we're working with industry there to open up public sector assets to deploy small cell technology to improve mobile user experience. And then our 5G investment fund is due to formally launch in the next couple of weeks, and that will support initially City Deal projects and programmes and strategic partners in taking forward any 5G ambitions they've got, and we'll fund the infrastructure to support that. So that's potentially 5G private indoor and outdoor networks, where you'll be able to demonstrate use cases of using that technology. And the last part of the work stream is our Digital Innovation Network, which is a LoRaWAN network, which will enable IoT sensors, such as sensors on bins. It can be used in agriculture, putting sensors on gates, so when you know when they've been left open. And across the region, we've deployed nearly 240 gateways, which will enable that type of technology as well. So there's a lot of detail on this slide, but this is a breakdown of what mobile coverage looks like in each of the local authorities and each of the counties at the moment. Carmarthenshire has got the biggest issue when it comes to partial total not spots, but hopefully that will be addressed through the shared rural network. But this is something we're looking at monitoring all of the time. The 21-22 assessment did indicate that there was very little investment in mobile coverage, but we think the shared rural network will address this issue. So it's something we're monitoring very closely. And then finally, the only programme red risk at the moment that we've got is the shared rural network deadline. So that work around deploying mobile masts has got a June 2024 deadline. There are about 25 masts going up in region, but each of our next gen infrastructure managers are working again really closely with the mobile network operators to ensure that we do get that £18.5 million investment into the region. Has anyone got any questions?
That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, does members have any questions or comments regarding the presentation? Councillor Harvey?
I think it's a comment really. I think with all the projects we sort of undertaken through the city deal or whatever, this is probably the most important. I think we saw the amount of people who were struggling because of poor connectivity with COVID, and God forbid we never see that again. But some parts of our region are still like third world, where you can't get a mobile phone signal or can't get connectivity in areas where you'd expect to have it. So the sooner this moves on and progresses, the better. And so vitally important, for business and for people who've got to work from home. But thanks for the presentation.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Holland?
Yeah, thank you. I'll just put my hand down. Oh, so by day I work for Rebecca Evans, so I'm in the Gower constituency, and as you can imagine, I know Carmarthenshire guys got a lot going on, but we're talking about this fibre and we're talking about fast things, and the focus has to be on people who just have no internet connection, because the worry of people becoming digitally excluded because of their area or their age. I know you said about the officers in the various councils. How are you guys communicating to those rural areas for uptake? I know you said you had things in place for rural schemes, but do you contact them directly, or is it just taking off people who get in touch with like BT Openreach or Virgin? Or thanks?
That is a huge part of our plans. Though the team in Swansea is quite new, they started in July. We want to start with members. We think that actually we're in the process of analysing all of the data, of understanding just how many premises in each ward have got atrocious broadband, basically. And then we'd like to come out and meet with you, understand how we can get that information out to your constituents. Amy, who's just started with us, will be doing a huge comms campaign around a lot of the schemes. One of the ones that supports people immediately is the Access Broadband Cymru scheme, where you can use alternative technology. So we've seen a lot of people. It's not always the most reliable, but it is a lot faster. When you're on 2 meg, 4G can be a solution. Starlink is also an alternative. We've seen a lot of people in Carmarthenshire move to Starlink. The issue you've got there is the cost is £75 a month. So we're looking for that to become more competitive. But in terms of communicating, that is going to be something we're going to ramp up, because there's so many people just don't realise what's available to them. And also understanding, when is it coming? It's setting expectations. I think a lot of, myself included, I didn't realise how complicated it is to get fibre to every home in the region. It isn't straightforward. So just keeping people up to date is really important. So yes, very high on our agenda.
Thank you.
Does any other members have any questions on this? If I just make a couple of points then. I'm glad to see that the Virgin total has been excluded, because I don't think it was fair. And I said in the last meeting that I think we shouldn't have been including that in our figures. I guess from my point of view, what I'm looking for is, what are we physically doing to address the issue? Apart from giving advice and kind of highlighting, because I think I saw Superfast Cymru, that's a Welsh Government scheme. Access Broadband Cymru, that's a Welsh Government scheme. Are we literally just pointing at Welsh Government schemes to people and trying to give it more advice? Or are we actually physically doing things like putting up more masts? Like Starlink, I'm a bit reticent to kind of support, especially because Elon Musk is behind it. And I don't think all that, money should be going directly to one person, where he has the ability to turn off Ukraine's broadband just at the drop of a hat. So, I don't think we should be supporting that. I think we, as public sector organisations, we should be seeking to address the issue in a UK or Welsh fashion. So, yeah, if you could just provide some physical examples of how capital investment or revenue investment is going to actually address some of these like not spots issues, as well as people's access to broadband.
So in terms of our own spend, the dark fibre network that we're procuring, which is to those 33 strategic sites, like I say, initially it will be just the Llanelli, Swansea, Neath area. That will bring additionality, that will bring additional fibre to those areas, but importantly, it's business grade fibre. It also provides backhaul for mobile. So having a fibre spine across the region is critical, and part of our capital spend is addressing that through that dark fibre network. Similarly with the PSBA order, which is from an existing framework, will bring additional fibre to only 401 premises, but it's still 401 that wouldn't have had it otherwise. What we're also looking at, so at the moment, we've, like I said, we've got the £6 million, which is part of our rural work stream. It's critical for us to not duplicate funding here or prevent commercial rollout. So in region, we've got, there's a significant amount of commercial plans. We're not able to do any interventions where commercial plans exist, but we have got the data to understand where we can. We also have the data from UK government and Welsh government on where they plan to intervene, and we want them to spend their money in region. But what that will probably leave us with is the very, very hard to reach premises. So the next phase of our work is understanding what that picture looks like, looking at some serious solutions of how we can address that, and that will require market engagement. And then, yes, we will be spending our own money towards it, and potentially moving some funding allocation from connected places so that we can go further. And as well as those relationships, one of the critical parts is continually analysing the data. We get data from UK government every 4 months, and that has to inform our plans. Because, like I say, ultimately there's a finite pool of people who can deliver this infrastructure, and enabling their rollout, because they are commercial organisations, is our primary focus, but we have also got capital spend to support it.
So the 33 areas you're looking at, as well as the 69 public sites, I'm guessing what you're doing is just improving the fibre to the cabinets, yeah? And then other companies are able to sell kind of better services to local residents as a result.
It's fibre to the premise, so it is fibre to the premise. But what will happen is, as they're building those fibre routes, they will pass so they'll pass key industrial site zones within the dark fibre network, which they could then, off the back of that, then connect them up, because we've paid for that fibre spine.
Yes.
To our own public sector assets and sites. It then means that that commercial organisation could then build out from that, because we've done the hard part, if that makes sense.
But that's commercial rather than residential are going to be benefited from that largely.
On the dark fibre network, it will be business grade, but the important element of it as well is the backhaul for mobile, which will then support residents. The PSBA order, which has been delivered through Openreach, will benefit residents, but our own capital spend under rural is targeting what are known as white premises, so premises that are not getting gigabit capable or are getting less than 10 meg. Primarily, we're focusing on the people who cannot get speeds up to 30 meg, and then if we can, we'll go further.
So if we look at parts of Pembrokeshire, look at parts of Gower, the Swansea Valley, Neath Valley, as well as parts of Carmarthenshire, as you say, Carmarthenshire, 67% have signal, 1,120 kilometers square do not have even mobile signal. Theoretically, after this city deal has finished, how much do you think that would have changed by our direct investment?
In terms of the mobile side of things, it is in the hands of UK government and the mobile operators. We're not able to invest in that area. They are looking at a national figure of 85%. We think it will significantly. Carmarthenshire is a huge beneficiary of shared rural network. If all of those masts go up, it's about 12.5 million. I think so it's a significant. That should have a big impact. In terms of our own, I would like. It's a very similar to Sam. It's hard to quantify it exactly at this stage, but we are hoping to eradicate as many premises as possible who can't get decent broadband. So anyone who's got less than 30 meg, we want to make sure that they don't exist anymore.
So that 12 million investment in masts are largely coming from O2, Vodafone, and the big companies, and
it's coming from Vodafone. It's shared infrastructure. That's also quite critical. So it's one of the first times they've ever done this. They're building one mast, but all 4 mobile operators can use it. And where that's critical is it will reduce the amount of mast we've got in our countryside, because we know there are opposition from an aesthetic point of view, but it will enable whoever you are to be able to have a signal when you need it, and especially important in emergency situations when you're when you're in the middle of nowhere.
And to what level was that kind of decision making already baked in regarding the UK government, or do you believe that the city deal has influenced that?
I believe we've influenced it in terms of the resources we've got in place are helping to make it possible for that infrastructure to be deployed, because it is quite complex. It has to go through a number of departments. It was recognised by Welsh Government in the barrier busting report. It's been identified in the Future Telecoms Infrastructure report that these resources are needed to make this as smooth as possible. And I also know from mobile network operators that, they've only got a small amount of resource. They will deploy where it's easy to do so. So I firmly believe that the programme's contributed to that through the resources we've got in post. Some of it naturally would have happened. I think that's, be wrong to say otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
And Chair, Deja's probably a bit more reserved on this, but I won't be. What digital infrastructure have created in terms of that structure is exemplar. To build on what Deja just said in those 2 citations of the structure, people are looking in on our region as how we've organised ourselves and have resources to support the deployment of digital infrastructure in a broad sense. So that's one key thing. The other thing is, in terms of where the money comes from, a lot of it is private sector. So there's a very small amount of city deal funding, which is leveraged already, a lot of accelerated, if you like, rollout of full fibre and various other things. So that, coupled with the things like 5G and IoT and all these other things that Deja's kind of highlighted, for me, it shows our region is probably accelerating faster than other regions. I think that's starting to come through in terms of information. So for me, the organisation, the working togetherness, if you like, I think that's what do you call it, DJ? What's your strapline? Connected.
Connectivity through collaboration. Yeah.
So that is proof in the pudding that it's starting to work. So the existing funding that's available in parallel with the City Deal funding, we want to maximise what we're doing for that across the region, but we want to gear ourselves up for any future funding opportunities as well. So the engagements that we have both with Welsh and UK government, I think, are very strong, and we will continue to solidify those relationships and collaborations too for the future of whatever rollout. And I think no matter how much money you throw at digital infrastructure, you probably will always need more. So it's going to be a continual treadmill, if you like, of activity and engagements and drawdown of funds. Deidre, is that fair to say in how I've said it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it shows in the assessment that was done independently in the level of investment in a region that potentially isn't particularly commercially viable. They've driven fibre to places where there are only a few homes there. One of the other things we need to focus on is take up of services. It's the one way that we will keep these suppliers within our region, is to support with that as well.
Can I just add one thing? It is Councillor Holland, you hit the nail on the head. There will be many instances where individuals may not have good connectivity, and the more engagement and communication, two-way communication in that sense, to understand that, it coupled with the stuff that Deja said in terms of the government's assessment of connectivity, we need to make sure that those two things marry up. Just because we say a place is connected doesn't mean that every person will have that same connectivity for multiple of technical reasons.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any points they want to raise as part of this? I can't see any indications. Okay, if we move on, thank you, DJ, for that report.
Thank you.
We move on to the next agenda item. So this is item number 7, Swansea Bay City Deal. So we have 2 financial monitoring reports because there was a gap between our meetings. So I understand that
it says Stephen Aldridge.
Stephen, you're going to be taking this. So if you want to focus on 8, but you could touch on 7 as well, because most of our questions would be related to 8.
Yeah, just share my screen. See that?
Yes.
So Appendix A is the provisional outturn report. So with the figures. So if I could draw your attention to that, then I'll work my way through the report. So you can see the Joint Committee and Accountable Body expenditure forecast. So this is for 23-24. Sorry, I should have mentioned Q1. So the expenditure is forecast at an estimated 2.275 million. And we have an accrued interest within this payment of 1.535 million. So that's interest due to the partners based on the cash we hold as a city deal. I'll just work my way through then, if that's okay. So we're projecting, so for the period ending 31st of March 2024, we're estimating the project portfolio management office to have an expenditure of 668,000, with staffing being 535,000. So that includes the expected pay award for this current financial year. And you can see then we have an underspend against that salary, sorry, staffing salary of 46,000. That's due to vacancies and posts being budgeted at the top of the scale. Sorry, I've got a really tickly cough today, sorry.
That's fine.
So the income then, we have an income of 2.295 million, which offsets expenditure. That is in part made up of the top slice. So we have a 1.5% top slice taken off the City Deal grant payments we make to the partners. So we're projecting that to be 761,000 this year. And then the rest is made up of the interest of cash, interest based on the cash balances we hold. and that should be 1.535 million. And then moving on, and 2.6 is a statement of balances. So at the end of 22-23, we had in reserves 153,500. Based on the current financial year forecast, we think we will have a deficit for the city deal of 100,000. So that will bring our reserves down to 53, just over 53,000 at year end. And moving on then to section 3, the portfolio investment fund. So we're projecting at the moment, so this is based on quarter 1, 23-24, to have a project total of 1.255 billion over the lifetime of the portfolio. So that represents a small overinvestment against the revised budget of 9 million. So the revised budget is 1.246 billion. In the body, the narrative of the report, there's some explanation of the variances. I'm not sure if you want to go through that, or do you want to read that in your own time? But
yeah, carry on.
Part of it is, so as DJ was saying, the digital infrastructure accounts for some of that. So it's 15.8 million over private sector funding. Swansea Region, at the time of this report, was demonstrating an underinvestment of 6 million. Pentra Owl demonstrated an overinvestment of 6 million. So you can see overall it is roughly 9 million over the agreed revised investment total. If I go to section 3.2, so the annual investment forecast, this is what we think of all 9 projects we'll be spending this financial year. It was estimated at 188 million, I believe, or 187 million, but we are now, based on the returns we've had from the partners, we think that will now be 133 million, given an annual underinvestment of 54.2 million. However, future years, the profiles we've had from the partners of future years show that this will be caught up. So overall, we said 1.256 billion will be spent, but more of that will now be in later years. And finally, in section 3.3, the current projected revenue requirement for the project as a whole is 56.4 million, represent just under 5% of the total city deal. This compares to quarter 4, 22-23 of 61 million, and the reduction is the result of some small fluctuations across several projects. That's the end of the report. As I said, Appendix A shows the financial position as of quarter 1 for the project office and accountable body. I'm open to any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you very much. Does any members have any questions on the financials? Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Can I ask, obviously we're on quarter 1 now of this new financial year. Can you give us an idea? I was looking at the expenditure, and the capital expenditure is so poor over the projection. Well, can you explain why? Or can anybody explain why?
Capital expenditure to date, you mean? Or
yeah.
I think John Burns probably may be able to help me with this one. Sorry, I'm new to post, so it sounds like I'm passing the buck. But I think there's been in previous years, I think effects of COVID and other issues have caused expenditure to be slipped into future years. I think John's raised his hand, Chair.
Yeah, John, do you want to come in?
You're on the right track, Steve. So there are a number of factors, Councillor. We have reported them previously, but just to recap. So obviously even though we're in year 7, as the chair said earlier on, in terms of actual delivery for the majority of things, we're probably talking in the last 3 to 4 years or thereabouts. So COVID was the first one that Stephen just talked about, but then we had obviously behind that inflationary pressures, construction impact, costs, rising costs, and so in some cases extremely significant, like doubling of costs. Energy prices was another one. So all of these things coupled have created slippage. In some instances, the worst case scenario has been up to 24 months through multiple factors, lots of them out of our control. But I would say most projects in the country have slipped, particularly around infrastructure. So we're not out of kilt with many other infrastructure projects, but we're trying to mitigate and manage those as best as we can to make sure that we get things delivered as quickly as possible, acknowledging that things have slipped. So that's the main reason. So some of the mitigations that we're going through are around ensuring that the scope of what we're planning to do is still fitting with the purposes. So we are going through what we call change requests. So for example, Pembroke Dock Marine, there was an opportunity floating offshore wind. So we changed the project, if you like, from the business case, as we did for the Matrix, which is part of the waterfront project with University of Wales Trinity St David. We're going through another one as it happens in the pipeline with Neath for Talbot around the advanced manufacturing production facility. So we're making sure that projects are still relevant, but by doing the changes takes time for approval. Seeking extra funding, largely down to the lead deliverers. So to go through the process of reapproving, if you like, a budget can take months, if not into a lot longer than that. Funding agreements has been another one where that's, if you like, a control mechanism where that cascades down all the funding and any risk associated with delivering the project. And again, funding agreements have taken a lot longer because they are a legally binding document to get squared with all partners involved, particularly for the regional projects, and get those underway. So that sometimes delays the starting up of projects. But we are value engineering. As I said, we're seeking extra funds. We've done that through Pembroke Dock Marine with WEFO funding. We secured extra funds for part of their project. And it's also conversations with both governments as well in some instances. So there's no one size fits all. I could take any project, if you like, across the portfolio and probably give an explanation. And Stephen has put some wording into the financial document, the quarterly updates, trying to explain what some of those complications are of slippage. But the key word is slippage. It doesn't mean that a project isn't going ahead or it won't eventually spend that money. It's just the time has slipped in terms of when they're going to deliver that infrastructure build. Does that help? Or is it long?
Come back?
Yeah, I think there's obviously obviously there's an issue around the fact that COVID did effectively close a lot of the projects down for 18 months. I know the arena carried on building the arena even though they had COVID, and I'm assuming that some of the other projects had to do some work done on it. Whether or not it done a lot of work is the point. But one of the biggest issues of all is the fact that one of the big money spenders within the city deal has been homes to powers, powers from home, or whatever it is. And yet there doesn't seem to be any movement at all on that. And it's a £500 million. It's supposed to be, and we rely on house builders. And with regards, with house builders, we are currently seeing very high mortgage rates. We're seeing a slowdown in building, house building in other parts of the UK. So how is that going to affect this project in right across the region?
Yeah, so it can, it definitely is a risk, but the way that the project sees that, so Homes as Power Stations, is led by Neath for Talbot Council, but obviously delivered by all 4 local authorities. But the registered social landlords, RSLs, they are still committed and are building or refurbishing. There's local authority housing stock, and as you said, Councillor, there's private sector builders. So the indications are that people are still delivering and they're still using fabrication, which is environmentally friendly and supports the notion of homes as power stations, but also the technology that goes within them. They would be on the project update, but I might as well do it now because it answers the question. They have done an analysis of the supply chain. They have employed somebody to help support the development of the supply chain around innovation in the homes. They're engaging well with both governments and also with RSLs and other providers. They've got a funding call which has just gone out and closed, and they had a number of applications in the first round of funding, the Financial Incentive Fund, so they can start looking at new or refurbished homes, taking account of the HAPS approach, if you like, and those will be captured as part of that. But in parallel, as it is with digital infrastructure and skills, there's lots of work already going on in parallel, which is already what I would call a HAPS home, and they are monitoring and taking account of those as well. And what the project would say in response to your specific question, Councillor, is that the house prices, if you like, they have gone up. So they believe that they will achieve that private sector funding, even though there may be less new builds, the price of how much these things cost have gone up. So that might balance it out a little bit. But they are monitoring it closely. I work very closely with Una, and I think, was it in the last scrutiny meeting, I think HAPS were discussed part of that, and Lisa Willis and Simon Brennan were here as well. And they were given assurances, hopefully, to the members on some of the targets that they have, and they believe that they can achieve them.
Because it is a critical part of the city deal that
Yes.
this £500 million is invested. Now, that is private sector money as opposed to housing association and what have you. So it'll be interesting to see what that investment looks like over, say, the next couple of years.
And just to clarify, though, the RSLs, the housing associations, are classified as private sector.
They are they?
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
But that their money directly comes from the Welsh Government, does it not, under grant funding?
Some, but the definition of the private sector funding includes RSLs. I've checked that out personally as well.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
I was aware that RSL's money, capital, came directly from Welsh Government, anyway. So I didn't realise it was classified as a public private funding.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Do we have any other questions for Stephen's report? I can't see any. Thank you, Stephen, for that. If we move then on to agenda item 9, as Jonathan stated, this is the quarterly monitoring report. So I'll just hand it straight over to you.
Thanks, Chair. There's a lot of information in here. What I've tried to do on the project updates is combine the quarterly monitoring, Chair, with the highlight report, because obviously the 9 projects and programs. So I'll go through those at the end. But if I just start with the Q1 quarterly monitoring, the first document you should have in the dashboard is around the RAG status. So that's the red, amber, green status. Pentra Owl finances went from amber to green. That's because the local authority secured the additional funds that were required to deliver what was set out. Campuses as a project moved from amber to red status. The consequence of that is the funding agreement, and it's imminent. I've had an email this morning confirming between this is a secondary funding agreement with the Swansea Bay University Health Board and Swansea University. They're almost at the point of signing their secondary funding agreement. As soon as that happens, they can then proceed with delivery, but they are proceeding at risk as much as they can up to the design stage anyway. Homes as power stations, I kind of mentioned it, they've gone from red to green in terms of staffing resources. So they've appointed a supply chain manager. So that individual has been in post now for about 2 or 3 months. So they're getting stuck into the supply chain and all the stuff associated with that. And Councillor Holly, that will also help support the private sector funding, and then anything associated with homes as power stations in terms of the technology within them. Skills and talent, the finance moved from amber to green, and then the Swansea waterfront finance went from red to amber, and that's around the innovation matrix, which needed additional funds. That was secured through University of Wales Trinity St David's own funds, and they commenced on site as well. So there's a number of movements there, but mostly in a positive way. If anybody wants to put their hand up through the process when we're going through this, please do. In terms of the risk and issue management, again, from a portfolio level, there are 8 green risks, 20 amber and 7 red risks. So one of the key changes is an additional red risk, which is delays to the recruitment of a PMO manager. So Phil Ryder, who you might have met on previous occasions, Phil left. He got a brilliant promotion, is working as a program manager, but his departure, there's a pause on recruitment for the time being until we assess the resources required for the PMO going forward. And Stephen, I don't think you often get called an issue, but you were one of our red issues. Now that you're recruited and in place, so welcome to Swansea Bay City deal. We've reduced the issues down to 1 red issue from 2. Benefits realisation, and this comes back to several of the conversations that we've had or questions that we had on the projects. So jobs, there are no changes from the previous quarter. That's 542, that's around 5.5% of total jobs created, predominantly in the construction area. And then investment, that has increased. We're now at around 21% of total investment of 1.3 or 1.2 to 1.3 billion. And that is now around 262 million as of Q1 reporting. Councillor Holly, do you want me to bring you in at this point?
Please, Jonathan, if you don't mind. I have to say that we have done 21% investment and we got 5.6% of the jobs created. The total jobs target is 9,686. I'm assuming that includes construction workers as well.
Yes.
So how many sustainable jobs are we going to get for this investment? Because with respect, you know, we've got that 542, and as I say, it's 2016 we signed the deal. Obviously, COVID has had, and as you have rightly said, had a major impact on us. But it's still in all, you know, when it's still a way down from where we, you know, for 20% of investment, I would have expected a bit more than 542 jobs. Can you? I know it's difficult to predict, and I'm pleased wouldn't hold you to anything that you say, you know, because you're not a consultant, and they just give you an answer and then caveat it all underneath, you know. Exactly. That's the way it is, you know. So, and I know that when we scrutinised the city deal in the beginning, the jobs total was the magic figure, and nobody's ever likely to get that. And one of the things that we didn't realise at the time was that construction jobs was going to be a major part of that jobs. It's the sustainable jobs that must interest the elected members in this part of the world. So to say, you know, it's just a comment. I don't know if you can give any sort of.
I can give a response, Councillor. I hope I can give a response and a bit, hopefully a bit of confidence about not the current, but what will happen. So it's a similar response, if you like, to what Sam said on skills. I know that number is higher, but I can't qualify that number just yet, Councillor, because what we need to do are evaluations. So those are direct jobs created as a direct consequence of what we've done, the interventions, the builds, or recruiting project teams, or wherever it might be. So the number that you see there is higher in reality, but we have to do evaluations. We have to use those analysts and economists and whoever else to take our evidence, if you like, and then put them through a kind of an evaluation process to figure out how many jobs have been created. So to give an example of that, because it's all well and good talking about hypothetical and theoretical, Eregin has been in operation for 5 years. There's a spoiler alert because that was one of my updates later, but it had been in operation for 5 years. So the build has completed, and it's now completed its 5th year operation in October. They are conducting currently an evaluation, an economic appraisal of how many jobs are being created, accommodated, the economic impact associated with it, etc. So they will come up with that magic figure of how many jobs have been created, which will be added to that 542. Now, with all of the other, there's about 35 things in the city deal. There's 9 headline projects and programs, but 35 things. What we have to do is evaluate after it's built and in operation at appropriate times, things like jobs, wider investment, economic impact, etc. So we will do those things periodically. And what I've got currently, I chair a group, a subgroup with all the project leads, and that is an evaluation subgroup to identify when and how and what we will be evaluating. So now is the right time to start gearing this kind of area of activity up. So hopefully in coming weeks and months, we'll start seeing some of those come through the pipeline. And what Sam didn't mention earlier on, I think she said 2030, but the actual end date of that 9,000 jobs that you referenced is 2033. So we've got 10 years of additional activity, which we need to evaluate.
I understand the evaluation process, and I can well believe the way in which the evaluation process will be done. It'll go through a matrix. That matrix will give us a reading from people who make coffee in the restaurants to how it affects other industries, the supply chain, and all the builders, merchants, you name it, everyone will be included in that. But that actually is where we will have to have a closer examination of that evaluation, because then and only then will we really see what sustainable jobs have been created from that investment.
Yeah.
But thank you for the answer anyway, and I look forward to the evaluation in the next few months. Are the experts you're employing or the consultants, are they going to put caveats in it as well?
Well, this is part of the problem, and why we're writing our, again, not getting overly technical, but there's a methodology where you can either take evidence, hard evidence, which people monitor, and that's fact of thing, or there's the more economist modeling based on assumptions and wherever else. So we do that for the business cases, but in some instances there are no data sets available, whether we capture them or by a government body or some other organization. So sometimes they will be modeled. And what we're hopefully going to do for, I would say, most of our projects and programs is a hybrid. We'll take what evidence we have,
okay,
and then we'll combine that with the modeling as well. So I would like as much evidence as possible, but you know, it's the balance, if you like, of how much effort is put in to what you actually get in return. But the other thing, and again, to give you a bit of reassurance, when we're tracking our benefit realization, jobs are categorized into 3 areas. So I'm trying to make sure I say the right areas, but one is about the kind of project setup, if you like, and get into the thing. The other one is about the build, you know, so it's all around the jobs created for construction, which could actually include sustainable jobs, because a lot of the contractors that we're using are local, so they could be sustainable jobs there. And then the other one is more the operational, so the running of the buildings and the things associated with it, which leads to the impact of the growth of businesses, etc. So we are categorizing them for the reasons that you just outlined, in that, well, how many were for the setup, the building the build, and then the operation impact side of things. So we can separate those 3 figures out.
Thank you very much for all that. Thank you.
Okay. And I encourage anybody to ask me as I go en route to those sort of questions. So the integrated assurance and approval plan. So this is all about our assurances. So Deja highlighted that they had an amber green. We also conducted one for the portfolio that was undertaken in July. They interviewed probably best part of 22 stakeholders. Our portfolio also came out as an amber green rating, which is pretty much the best that we could expect at this stage in the portfolio. And then there's a whole host of other projects and programs also going through their assurance reviews. The most recent being Pembroke Dock Marine. They came up with an amber green rating as well. So it's a very positive story across the board. And then the other one was the waterfront, Swansea waterfront, with the matrix and precinct led by Trinity. That also had an amber green for the matrix as well. So we are seeing things moving forward. We are getting good assurance reviews. We've got a whole host of other ones coming behind, including homes as power stations, which was mentioned earlier, supporting innovation, low carbon growth, and Pentra Owl. So again, when you have your project updates in due course for these areas, they can share with you the results of those assurance reviews as well. In terms of procurement pipeline, I'm not going to dwell on this too much. The information's in there. There are minimal changes from Q4. Campuses, as I said, has slippage due to the funding agreement. But basically everything is progressing. It's not progressing everywhere as quickly as we hoped. But what you're finding is the buildings that are now in construction and underway, so things like Pentre Owl, the Kings at 71, 72 Kingsway, the Innovation Matrix, they are being built, I would say, within a minimal tolerance of delay. So you might talk about a couple of months, but they are progressing as planned. But those are the ones, if you like, that have been bottomed out in terms of the rising and increasing costs or any issues around energy prices, the value engineering, securing additional funds, all that sort of stuff. So that's all progressing well. Change notifications, again, what we try and do is make sure that there's visibility of key changes. The one that we had during this reporting period was from campuses. So that was to do with the increased costs of the Life Sciences Wellbeing and Sports Facility based on Ashley Road. So Sketty Lane construction costs were estimated now to be 17.2 million. That's risen from their outline business case of around 12.79 million. But what we're finding is that the project is now moving into what they call REBA Stage 3. So the costs will be confirmed or firmed up and confirmed with the main contractor procurement process, which is underway. So what they're saying is that there's no impact on outputs or quality benefits, all that sort of stuff at project or portfolio level. And they've already looked at mitigations around value engineering, raising internal awareness around Swansea University's capital plan, and identifying the cost increase or the shortfall, if you like, and securing university funds for that. So even though it is an increase in cost and we are monitoring that, that is being logged as a change notification. Chair, I can't see any hands up, so I'll just move on to, sorry.
Jonathan, can I on that the one, the university said the additional costs are being met by the university themselves, yes, of their own funds. Is there the value engineering, as that hasn't been completed down there because they haven't gone to RAB3, is it?
That's correct, yes. Yeah,
okay,
they are in the process of value engineering and things like, for example, a different project, but they might have had a facade of glass which might have been 3 meters high, and instead of that they put 1.5 meters with a joining section. That could reduce the cost by tens, if not hundreds of thousands, as an example of that. But different project, but yes, you're correct, Councillor. Yeah. Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, no, just a quick one. In terms of construction costs, obviously construction inflation's been through the roof, like 12% plus.
Yeah.
We're seeing that start to come down now from some figures, and obviously costs should hopefully begin to start coming down again. What outlook do you foresee, in terms of the impact and the ongoing assessments of things that are being purchased and moving on? Where do you see that going now over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, we do a monthly construction cost impact assessment. So the one that you have is slightly out of date. So in terms of between the report that you've received and today, that cost has already increased. So I think it was reported in the report you had at 31 million. The last report we put through governance was 36 million, and we're about to put another one through now. So it's increased, Councillor, since what you've got in front of you. That said, unfortunately for us, as we're all familiar, we're all living it ourselves, things go up quicker than they come back down. So in terms of rising costs, we are seeing it stabilize. Yes, the inflation has sort of come back down, but we're yet to see that cost in terms of the contracts awarded. And what will be interesting from this point is new contracts awarded with main contractors and obviously the supply chain around that. So we're yet to see that kind of benefit, if you like, of the stabilization of the economic climate, or I wouldn't even say stabilization. It's better than it has been. But in the previous months, it has been very unstable. Pretty much most projects that have come through the procurement process are costing more than what they planned it to be. And bearing in mind, some business cases were written now about 2 or 3 years ago. So that even just from, if it was standard inflation, it would have been covered. But the inflation that we're experiencing is way above what we predicted it to be at outline business case. So it will continue to rise. I've got no doubt about that. And all we can currently report on is the known knowns. So until we go to the design and build and the contracts awarded, we don't know what that gap is for every entity that we have. But we're halfway through, if you like, that procurement process of there's more than 35 procurements, I think, in its entirety, but we're about halfway through those procurements.
So in terms of those procurements, do you think slippage will occur? Is there a thinking amongst the subcontractors or the contractors that we use that they should delay things, hoping that construction inflation will come down?
I don't, it doesn't feel that way. So I thought it might have, and we actually had a red risk on our portfolio risk register where we thought that we may not even get people bidding for these awards, but they are bidding. There are delays to that because there's a lot of negotiations happening, so that creates some of the slippage and refers back to the question earlier on. So the negotiations with tier 1 contractors takes longer as a process. And so it's a bit of a chicken and egg. We're hoping that it won't affect us in terms of attracting people, but what the fear, I guess, is that if there's been a lot of contracts awarded and people are losing money through the construction, they may look to recoup that money in future. So we're hoping that we get a decent price for the things that we're constructing, but everything is a bit out of kilt. And I think there's a general acceptance. We have had no project or program saying that they can't continue or proceed at this point in time, which is, well, I think that's phenomenal for our region, to be honest. People are still proceeding and you know, effectively taking the hit of the rising costs or negotiating better than what they probably have in the past.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Is it fair to say that, you know, a lot of the building construction companies, they can't afford not to compete, to bid for these jobs, because if they weren't, they would go to business anyway. So they've got to compete for them.
I think, yeah.
You know, from what I can gather from just in the Swansea area, nearly every project has gone up by a minimum of 5, maybe more, 10%. But you know, it's a sad state of affairs that I can't see any of the you know, the cement, I can't see the timber or anything like that coming down at all. It may stabilize at a particular price, but I can't see any prices coming down. So I think we are stuck now with this particular price structure, and I think we're going to have it for some time to come.
I agree.
I'm not sure if you agree.
I do agree. I you know, that was kind of my saying about, unfortunately, when they go up, they don't often come down at the same rate, if at all, in some instances, and we see that with fuel and various other things as well. So you know, it will, I got no doubt it will potentially stabilize as long as things continue the way they have for the last few months. But I think the volatility in, you know, economic environment could still throw a lot of spanners in the works for lots of infrastructure-based projects. But it also affects the revenue side of things as well, because that has a knock-on effect for inflationary pressures as well. But we are monitoring it. We are sharing that with both governments. And for me, even though the envelope of money that we have is fixed from City Deal, it's not from private sector or public sector, other public sector bodies. So there's that, and then there's the notion of, and we haven't hit that red button yet, and I don't think we need to just yet, but if we can't deliver as much as what we could have before, because the restriction of budgets, then we could look to the governments as to what we can actually deliver. And I know our counterparts in Scotland are having those negotiations with the Scottish and the UK government. Can they deliver the same amount of jobs, GVA, wherever it might be? Okay, so can't see any hands. So if I move on to this is the predominantly September highlight report, which is most current up-to-date information, but I'll draw in a few bits and pieces from the projects on the quarterly monitoring. I don't think I could do justice to digital infrastructure or skills and talent more than what Deja and Sam have done. So I'll skip past those ones because the presentations that you've had today. But if I start with the business engagement and communications, so an annual report was produced that was approved and published. So that was for 22-23. And what we're hopefully trying to draw out of that are some case studies, making it a bit more real, sharing some of the benefits already realized to date, as well as progress updates. So if you haven't seen that annual report, we can share it with all members. What we're also trying to do is get out into the more commercial business related communities. So we're taking a showcase event to each of the 4 boroughs. We've already done one down in Pembroke, in the BIC, down there, the Business Innovation Centre. So that's done in Pembrokeshire, and we had a really good attendance, really good feedback from that event. And we're in the process now of working with Neath, Talbot, Carmarthenshire and Swansea to set some dates before the end of this financial year. So before the end of March next year, we'll have a similar event, and we take all the teams, so the 9 projects and programs, and any local businesses or organizations, they all congregate at these events. And I did a spoiler alert earlier on, so it's the 5-year anniversary for Eregin. The anniversary event is in 2 days' time, 26th of October. And we'll have ministers and various other things down in Eregin to celebrate the success of that. And behind it, or hopefully on the day and behind it, the report on the economic evaluation of the first 5 years. Pentre Owl, they are moving forward with Zone 1. There's lots of work packages gone on sell to Wales. Things around apprenticeships that we talked about earlier on, those aren't captured yet. Work experience placements, school interactions, construction spend monitoring. They were successful in SPF bid, Shared Prosperity Fund, and they're also doing things like refreshing their website or promotional videos online. So if you haven't, have a look at those, they're really good. They've also launched, again, combining what Sam was doing with the Skills and Talent Programme with Pentre Owl. They had a Skills and Talent 21st Century Skills project, and that was launched in Park Scarlets, working with Bouygues, who are the tier 1 contractors, and that was launched in May. They got lots of planned activity. So Zone 1 is around innovation and the business network. So they're working with North Wales, looking for options for outdoor activities, integrated regional care fund, capital bid, amongst other things as well. So they're looking at networking, engaging, collaborating, and securing additional funds. And then the other zones, again, I mentioned REBA stages earlier on. So REBA Stage 2 design is complete for Zone 3. And for those who aren't aware, Zone 3 is the assisted living accommodation. And they're also scoping and modelling for Zone 2. So that's around the nursing home, residential rehabilitation, and extra care facility. So again, that's progressing really well. Homes as power stations, the supply chain lead has been recruited. I think I said that twice now, or the 3rd time. So the supply chain engagement activity already happened, and they're looking at the supply and demand and reviewing that across the region. The Financial Incentive Fund call had a deadline of 21st of September. I'm yet to hear the outcome of that, but I know that they were having a sift-in exercise towards the end of September. So again, that will be updated. And that's the allocation of the actual City Deal funds in the first round. And they had a showcase event as well, if anybody was aware of it, with So Modular, where they had that in September for people to go and look at what homes as power stations could physically look like. And they've got lots of things around the Supply Chain Development Fund and allocating that. So that will come in coming weeks. Eregin, so not phase 1, this is phase 2. They being University of Wales Trent St David are opting to pursue for a digital production facility for Eregin phase 2. That will have to go through a change request because that isn't exactly what is said in the business case that was approved some years ago. So we're waiting and supporting Trinity to develop that. Swansea City and Waterfront Digital District. The hotel is still under negotiations to secure a developer. 7172 Kingsway, Construction is continuing as planned. I think I mentioned earlier on, it's probably about a month or two delayed, but it is pretty much on track. Next week, they've got their topping out ceremony. So that means that the building has been built in its outside form. And they've got lots of things around, particularly around marketing for the space. But they've got heads of terms progressing with an anchor tenant. And also their procurement is underway for the building management company. Another element is innovation matrix. I mentioned earlier on, they got a delivery confidence assessment of Amber Green. That's the gateway review. From a tenancy perspective, they're doing brilliantly. Heads of terms. This isn't signed on a dotted line, but it's interest and near to signed on a dotted line. They have 75% of their occupancy already at heads of term level. And that was what was in the report. From then, I think it's gone up to about 90%. So there's a lot of interest in this space, as there is for the Kingsway, as there is for Pembroke Dock Marine. So at one point, Chair and members, there was debate about, do people still want office space or this space that we're building? The indications across multiple projects is yes. So that's a good sign. And the Innovation Precinct, which is again led by Trinity, they are going through options appraisals, and they've done a workshop, and they're in negotiations with Swansea Council, and hopefully that will come through that change process again in coming weeks or months. Pembroke Dock Marine. So there's, if you haven't been there, it's a brilliant site to go and see. The Hannah annexes, Annex 4 has already been handed over to the tenant. The other 3 annexes are imminent handover. Slipway is now completed. There's a thing called a timber pond, that's infill has been completed. Work, pontoons have been berthed. A whole host of things have happened around there, and the site has been transformed in that sense. They're also working with lots of collaborative bids, with Ofgem Strategic Innovation Fund, looking at stuff with what they call Wave and National Grid, about grid connection points. Floating offshore wind, the test and demo study shared with the Crown Estate and Welsh Government. They're doing lots of good engagements as a collaborative, if you like, down there. So lots of good things happening there. But there's one thing, Chair, that it was asked as a question, and I'll take a couple of minutes just to summarise it, because it might be new to a lot of the members here. So a new risk has been identified in Pembroke Dock Marine relating to the unsuccessful contracts of difference auction. So this is run by UK government, and it's around offshore wind. So by way of context, the UK government's contract of difference auction is the primary support scheme for renewable energy. Auction round 5, so AR5 as they call it in the media, that's the first test of the annual process that they have, and the outcome was announced in September just gone. And even though there's lots of significant media attention around the lack of offshore wind, there were some notable wins for Wales, which Pembroke Dock Marine, and as an intervention to support many different marine energy kind of projects. And one of those examples would be tidal stream technology developers securing contract of difference. So what I'm saying is that it's not just floating offshore wind that Pembroke Dock Marine are focusing on. So, but going back to the offshore wind, a lot of the kind of this companies and organisations around the Swansea Bay City region didn't enter or withdrew from the auction round 5 before the results were announced. Okay, and on reflection, the current state of the energy market, basically the significant price increases facing offshore wind to construct these massive wind turbines, and the developers and the supply chains, there's lots of risks and uncertainties because of the rising costs. So it's an ongoing issue, and there's active discussions focusing on reforming the contract for difference process, because there were issues with the process that they undertook. And there's another round coming out in spring 24, which is called AR6, so auction round 6. And what they're hoping to do in conjunction with the UK government is to reinvigorate offshore wind growth in the UK and its contribution to net zero targets. So the Celtic Sea projects are expected to develop through the Crown Estate commercial scale leasing rounds. They'll do lots of stuff around the pre-seabed lease phase, but that will take some time to even undertake. And the kind of feedback from the partners down there is that floating offshore wind wasn't successful. It's not an indicator of future outcomes of flow, particularly in the Celtic Sea. And above all, the work plan is in place to deliver the PDM outcomes as planned, and the innovation infrastructure will be there to serve whatever energy transition ambitions there are for decades to come, probably generations. And we've got a series of the kind of mitigations from each of the partners down there as to what they're doing. So we've got that detailed as well. But I won't cover those, Chair. But there's a lot more information to unpack if anybody ever wanted to read up on those. But I'll pause there in case there is any follow-up question to that auction round.
Any questions for members? I can't see any.
Okay. But it's an important point, and as I said, they're from a PDM organisation, they are on it and they are engaging, lobbying, doing all the things that they can do. So I think I've got 2 more projects left. So campuses, I mentioned earlier on, they're awaiting the secondary funding agreement sign off between Swansea University, Swansea Bay University Health Board, but they have at risk completed REBA Stage 2 and progressing with REBA Stage 3 for Sketty Lane, noting the increased costs. They've done ecology surveys for Morriston access route for the road access. And they're also doing, if anybody's driven past Ashley Road recently, they're doing lots of stuff already for the phase 2 of campuses, things around the hockey stand, modular changing facility, 3G pitch facilities. So you might see a little bit of works going on there. Last project, but not least, is supporting innovation and low carbon growth. So the Bay Technology Centre has currently 5 tenants occupying around 37% of space of total rentable floor space. The official opening took place in June 22, which was very successful. Morgan Sindall have been appointed as a contractor for Switch. That's the decarbonisation of steel, led by Swansea University. 4 applications have been progressed to stage 2 for the Property Development Fund. And there's 2 which are on the reserve list that they're currently going through to see if they can get those funded as well. The Hydrogen Stimulus Project, which is adjacent to the Bay Technology Centre, that is progressing really well. They're put in, again, without going too technical, 100 kilowatt hydrogen electrolyser, and they've installed, or in the process of development, installation, commissioning that electrolyser. And the last bit, which I kept probably for the most important bit for their program, is they currently have an advanced manufacturing production facility as part of their business case. What has been approved by Joint Committee is that they have the opportunity to enhance that part of their business case and then secure the additional £5.3 million of funds, which is currently in our portfolio, to develop basically a skills centre for advanced manufacturing production. So that is that's gone through our PMO, it's gone through Economic Strategy Board. It will be going to Programme Board later in October, and then on to Joint Committee November, December, when the date gets set. So that enhanced advanced manufacturing production facility, Chair, if you remember, I think that came to the last board meeting with Simon Brennan and Lisa Willis. That is what they're advancing and taking forward. So subject to a change request, because that's what would be put under, we would need to get that approved by Welsh and UK government in that process.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan.
That's a very long, there's lots more. I've summarised it into hopefully a fairly succinct summary.
Yes, we appreciate that. Thank you very much. Does any members have any further questions or comments for Jonathan?
The one thing I would ask is, Jonathan, you talked about Pembroke and you talked about a couple of the other projects. We've been asked for some time now for site visits to see some of these projects. Okay. And I know there's been some resistance to us going, but I think the time has come that, you know, we hear what you say and understand what you say, but I think we need to see what's actually happening now. Yeah. And I think as the lead, you know, perhaps it's up to you now to make that decision about when and where we go to each.
The Pembroke Dock Marine, I fully support, endorse. I think the board should go there. I think it's definitely worth seeing, particularly a lot of the location-based projects, they have regional impact. So just because they're in a locality down in Pembroke, they will have not just for our region, but wider than that again. So Yeah, and we can support. I know I've been liaising with Tom. We can help support gearing some of those site visits up. Councillor, yes.
Because the Pembroke one could possibly have such an influence on the whole of West Wales,
Absolutely.
not just, and I mean the whole of West Wales. Maybe not as far as Cardiff, because nothing leaves Cardiff normally, but we'll see. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Does members have any other further questions or thoughts that they want to share? I can't see any indications. Okay, thank you, Jonathan. If we move on to our last agenda item then, so this is agenda item 10, forward work programme. As Councillor Holly has stated, we will be requesting site visits and having a discussion when we can actually get on site in some of these locations. So I'm sure Jonathan will support us in that. Does any members have any further points that they want to add to the forward work programme? No, I can't see any. Okay. There we are. If we move on then to agenda item 11, urgent items. I haven't got any urgent items. So with that being said, I declare the meeting closed and thank you all for your attendance, both members and officers.
Thank you.
Thanks,
very much.
guys. See
You're
you.